My name is Amanda Connors. I'm 28, a senior accountant at a firm you'd probably never recognize outside the finance world. My life is steady, quiet, no scandals, no chaos. Everything I own, I built piece by piece, my degree, my job, my credit, even the second-hand table in my kitchen. No shortcuts. No freebies. But if you ask my parents, they'd likely call me the distant one. Not because I ever screamed, stormed out, or said anything cruel. No, just because I stopped fixing the messes they created. I have one sister, Erin, older by 2 years but somehow always trailing behind. She turns every failure into a sob story and makes sure someone else carries the fallout. Lost another job? The boss was impossible. Evicted again? Her roommates were jealous. Missed another bill? She was trying her best. And my parents, Carol and Frank, they never pressed her. They simply shifted the pieces around, or tossed the responsibility to me. You're stable, Amanda. You're lucky enough to help. That was my label. Helpful. The dependable one. Over the years it became a refrain: car payments, overdue rent, bail money. And on the rare occasions I said no, suddenly I was the selfish one, the one burning bridges. I figured out early my worth to them wasn't love, it was usefulness. But usefulness has a limit. And they were about to see mine. Sunday dinners were always the same: casserole on the table, forced smiles, tension humming underneath. That evening I noticed the difference instantly. Mom's grin at the door was stretched too wide. You're looking thin, sweetheart, are you eating? Dad gave me a half-hearted nod. Hey, kiddo. Erin sat at the table, scrolling through her phone like she'd been caught skipping class. I knew the signs. When Mom was overly sweet and Dad unusually quiet, they were gearing up to drop something I wouldn't like. Through the salad course, Mom chatted about the weather like it was breaking news. Dad kept topping off his glass. Erin toyed with her fork like the food might attack her. Then Mom put her fork down, folded her hands neatly, and gave me that polished smile reserved for guilt-laced requests. Amanda, she said, voice soft and deliberate, we've been talking. Erin's had a rough stretch and, well, she'll be moving in with you for a while. Just like that. No asking, no discussion, just a decision handed down like it was already final. The room froze, waiting for me to argue. My dad braced for a fight. Erin kept her eyes down, but her posture gave her away, she expected to win. Instead, I smiled lightly. Of course. If it helps Erin get back on her feet, why wouldn't I? The silence that followed was almost satisfying. Mom blinked, thrown off. Dad let out a breath of relief. Erin leaned back, smugness spreading across her face. None of them noticed how still I became. How quiet. They thought they'd won. What they didn't realize, what no one even thought to ask, was that I hadn't lived in that condo for weeks. And I certainly wasn't letting Erin, or any of them, into a place that no longer belonged to me. I didn't wake up one morning and decide to start lying. It was years in the making. Years of guilt-drenched favors, small sacrifices swept under the rug, of learning that in my family, strength just meant being the most convenient to drain. At 21, Erin's car was repossessed. She cried that she couldn't get to her new job, begged me to co-sign. My credit was spotless, so I agreed. 3 weeks later, she quit showing up. Payments stopped. My credit took the hit. At 23, Mom called sobbing, mortgage overdue, Dad laid off, Erin back at home. I wired $2,000 immediately. No thank you. At Christmas I got a mug, world's best daughter. I nearly laughed. At 25, Erin's DUI. Dad begged me to keep it quiet. Said it would ruin the family's reputation. I paid for the lawyer. Erin never acknowledged it. The following year, she was pulled over again. When I refused to help, Mom called me cold. You don't understand what it's like to worry for someone you love, she scolded. Aaron's life is harder than yours. That's when it clicked. They didn't see me. They saw a function, a faucet that poured out money and time when they turned the handle. So, I started pulling back. Not abrupt. Just slower replies. A polite "I'll think about it" instead of yes. They noticed. They hated it. And one night, sitting in the condo I bought entirely on my own, I realized I didn't feel safe there anymore. Because it wasn't mine. Not really. To them, it was always ours. Just like my money. Just like my patience. So I made a decision. Quietly, without warning, I sold it. Hired a realtor, signed the papers, and moved into a small rental across town. No one asked where. I didn't tell them. Not out of spite, out of self-preservation. Because sometimes, when you're raised in a family that only values your usefulness, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to disappear just far enough to breathe. The texts began on Monday. We'll bring Aaron's mattress Saturday. Dad's loading boxes Friday night. She's so excited to finally have her own space. I didn't reply. They weren't talking to me, they were talking to the version of me that no longer existed. By Thursday, Mom was messaging daily. Do you need me to clean before Aaron moves in? She promises not to be a burden. She's even bringing dishes. That last one made me laugh into my coffee. Aaron hadn't washed her own dishes in years. Still, I let it play out. Said nothing. Waited. Saturday morning, I left early. Coffee first, then wandered a farmer's market without buying a thing. I stood in the sun, deliberately unhurried. My phone buzzed again and again. I ignored it. Finally, I answered one. Mom's voice was sharp, panicked. Amanda, what's going on? Some man is here, he says he lives in the condo. Says you don't live here anymore. I let the silence stretch. You never told us, she snapped. No, I answered evenly. I didn't. In the background I could hear shuffling bags, Dad's low growl, Aaron's frantic voice. What is this? Mom hissed. I sold it, I said simply. Weeks ago. You what? I moved. Quietly. No one asked where, I didn't think it mattered. Dead silence. I pictured them standing there on the porch, arms crossed, realizing they'd brought boxes for a home that no longer existed. Finally, Dad's voice cut in, furious. You lied. You told us she could move in. I said, if it helps Aaron, I don't see why not. My voice was calm. I never said where. The line went quiet. Just the sound of their breathing, sharp, uneven, disbelieving. And for once, I didn't fill the silence. So now what? We're just supposed to figure it all out, right? Her voice cracked with something fragile, not anger, but confusion. For a second, I almost replied. Almost. But I stayed quiet. Because the truth they never saw was this, I didn't swap the locks to punish them. I didn't sell the condo to make a statement. I left because I was exhausted from living in a place that never felt mine. I wanted to step inside my own front door without bracing for an argument. And maybe, the kindest thing you can do for people who refuse to change is to stop carving out space for them. They thought the chapter was closed. They were wrong. By dusk, I heard the knock I'd been expecting all day. I'd known they would show. Even as I drank my morning coffee, ignoring their voicemails piling up, I knew my mother wouldn't let it rest. She'd dig, she'd ask around, she'd drive over anything to prove she could still reach me. When it finally came, it was 3 quick taps, clipped and restrained, like someone pretending to be polite while boiling over inside. Through the peephole, Carol, Frank, Aaron, and a trunk stuffed with boxes, like it was already moving day. I opened the door halfway. Well, you found me. Mom's cheeks were flushed, lipstick smudged, hair pushed back as if she'd been tugging at it all afternoon. We tried calling, her voice was tight. We didn't think you'd actually be here. This is my apartment, I replied. Dad's tone rose. But you said she could move in. His voice sharpened. And now we're standing here with her belongings while you act like strangers. I didn't raise my voice, didn't move an inch. I never said she could live here. I said, if it helps Aaron, I don't see why not. That was at the old condo. Which, if you've forgotten, I don't live in anymore. Erin crossed her arms and stepped forward, cheeks red, not from shame, but from fury. This is pathetic, Amanda. You always act like you're better than the rest of us, but this is just cruel. I tilted my head. You packed up your entire life and drove across the city, planning to move into someone's apartment you didn't even confirm was still theirs. That's not cruelty. That's entitlement. Her voice cracked. You're my sister. Yes, I said flatly. And you've spent years confusing that with free housing. Dad cut in, stepping between us, voice laced with threat. Enough. We're not leaving. You've put us through plenty, Amanda. You owe this to your sister. There it was. The word that always lingered unspoken, oh. As if every bill I covered, every problem I solved, every sleepless night wasn't sacrifice, but debt in some invisible ledger I never signed. I stepped back, picked up my phone. What are you doing? Mom's eyes narrowed. I didn't answer. I dialed. 3 rings, then a calm voice, 911, what's your emergency? My family is outside my apartment refusing to leave. They're not on the lease, and they weren't invited. I'd like to report trespassing. Aaron's mouth dropped. Frank muttered a curse. Mom's face went pale, like I'd physically struck her. Amanda, her voice trembled, half pleading. You're calling the police on your own family? I asked you to leave. You didn't. I gave the dispatcher my address. Aaron's fury shook. Do you realize what people will think of you? What they'll say? Yes, I answered. They'll say I finally stopped opening my door. Mom blinked, voice dropping into something small. You used to be kind. You used to notice when I was hurting. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was thick, packed with every ignored boundary, every time I said yes when I wanted to scream no. 10 minutes later, the patrol car pulled up. A tall officer stepped out, calm but firm. Evening. We received a trespassing call. That was me, I said. She looked at my parents, then at the boxes still in the trunk. Sir, ma'am, I need you to leave the property. This isn't your residence. Frank snapped, she's our daughter. This is family business. The officer didn't flinch. And it's her home. You can't occupy it without her permission. Aaron's face twisted between tears and rage. You'll regret this, Amanda. No, I told her, steady. I've regretted almost everything until now. This is the first choice I know is right. The next morning, 12 missed calls. Mom, Dad, numbers I didn't know. Then the texts came, dripping guilt, why would you do this to your sister? She's sleeping in her car. Your mom's devastated. I didn't respond. I kept scrolling. Until I saw it, Mom's public Facebook post. 3 long paragraphs with broken heart emojis, a photo of toddler Aaron, and words crafted to cut. We raised both our daughters to love each other, but one of them forgot how. Amanda has turned her back when we needed her most. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments. Selfish. Cold. Ungrateful. It wasn't new, just louder. So I posted, too. No hashtags, no spin. Just screenshots. The $2,000 I transferred to cover the mortgage. My name tied to Aaron's car loan, with the collections notice beside it. The lawyer's bill from her DUI, the receipt from selling my condo, a timeline of one-time favors spanning years. Finally, a message from Erin 2 years ago calling me a boring robot because I wouldn't let her crash for a month. I ended with one line: I didn't abandon my family. I stopped volunteering for emotional debt. Then I put my phone down. Not because I was scared of their response, because I didn't need their applause. I just needed silence. That night, I finally had it. No buzzing phone, no footsteps in the hall. Just the hum of the fridge, the creak of pipes. I made tea not to help me sleep, but for the ritual, the warmth of the cup between my palms. My phone lit once with Mom's name. Again with Erin's. I didn't open either. I already knew the cycle: shock, fury, guilt, begging. Always in that order. I blocked them. Not out of spite, but because not every door deserves to be knocked on forever. On the balcony, the night air was cold but gentle, the kind of chill that reminds you you're alive. Below, the city kept moving, headlights glowing, someone walking a dog in an oversized coat. A neighbor waved from 2 floors down. I waved back. That tiny gesture felt more real than years of obligation. Inside, I shut off the lights: living room, kitchen, hall. No family portraits, no clutter. Just space. Just quiet. I wasn't triumphant. I wasn't bitter. I was simply finished. Done performing. Done explaining. Done being the spare oxygen mask for people who never learned how to breathe on their own. Somewhere, they were probably already rewriting the story, painting me as the villain, the heartless daughter. Let them. I didn't move away to be adored. I moved away to stop pretending. I didn't disappear. They just told the story like I did.